The Galactic Council had been monitoring Earth for exactly 342 rotations when Commander Vex'thar decided humanity was ready for first contact. What a spectacular mistake that turned out to be. I was there, you understand. Second in command aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Promise, which sounds a lot more peaceful than it actually was, considering we had enough firepower to glass a small moon. But hey, who's keeping track? The Council believed in peaceful negotiations backed by overwhelming force, practical, if not exactly inspiring. The readings indicate minimal technological advancement, Vex'thar announced, his three eyes scanning the holographic display with what I can only describe as smug confidence. They still use combustion engines. Combustion? Can you believe it? I could believe it. I'd been studying humans for weeks, and let me tell you, these creatures were fascinating in the worst possible way. They'd managed to split atoms before they figured out basic hygiene. They'd walked on their moon, but still couldn't agree on what to call carbonated beverages. Absolute madness. Sir, perhaps we should reconsider the landing location, I suggested, my tail twitching nervously. The rural area you've selected appears to be isolated. Exactly the point, Krill, Vex'thar replied, using my name like it was an insult. We make contact with simple folk first, farmers, peaceful types. Then we work our way up to their leaders. Standard protocol. Standard protocol. Right. Because nothing says diplomacy like terrifying some poor farmer in the middle of nowhere. We descended through Earth's atmosphere at dawn, our ship's cloaking field rippling like water as we passed through the clouds. The landing site was a sprawling piece of land somewhere in what humans called Montana, all golden grass and scattered trees, with mountains rising in the distance like jagged teeth. Peaceful, serene, the perfect place for everything to go. Absolutely, catastrophically wrong. The ship touched down with barely a whisper, our advanced dampeners ensuring the landing was smoother than a fresh-laid egg. Vex'thar assembled the greeting party, himself, me, and 4 security officers armed with neural disruptors, just in case the primitive humans got aggressive. Oh, how we underestimated them. The farmhouse sat about 200 meters from our landing site, a white structure with a red roof that looked like it had been assembled by someone with only a vague understanding of architecture. Smoke curled from a chimney, and I could see movement through the windows. Life, human life, blissfully unaware that their species was about to join the galactic community. Or, so we thought. We approached the house in formation, Vex'thar leading the way, with his arms spread in what the council assured us was a universal gesture of peace. I wasn't so sure. My species used that gesture to indicate we were about to vomit. But who was I to question centuries of diplomatic training? The front door opened before we reached it. A child stood in the doorway. Now, I'd seen images of human juveniles in the research materials. Small, fragile things with oversized heads and underdeveloped motor skills. This one matched the description. Maybe 9 or 10 solar cycles old, with brown hair pulled back in something they called a ponytail, wearing blue pants and a shirt that read Ranch Life in faded letters. She held a glass of what appeared to be their primitive orange juice. She took one look at us, sipped her juice, and said, "Huh, aliens," like we were mildly interesting, somewhere between a butterfly and a rock. Vex'thar's confidence wavered for exactly 2 seconds before he recovered. "Greetings, young human. I am Commander Vex'thar of the Galactic Council. We come in peace to— Is that your spaceship?" The child interrupted, pointing at the Harmony's Promise with her juice glass. "Yes, it is a vessel of advanced— Cool. Hey, Mom, aliens landed in the South Pasture." A voice from inside the house. "That's nice, dear. Make sure they don't spook the cattle." The child turned back to us. "You guys gonna spook the cattle?" I watched Vex'thar's primary eye twitch, 300 diplomatic simulations, and not one had prepared him for this level of casual indifference. "We have no intention of disturbing your livestock," he managed. "We are here to establish communication between our species and discuss humanity's integration into the wider galactic community." "Okay," the child said. She took another sip of juice. "You want to come in? Mom's making pancakes." A sound that would haunt my nightmares for cycles to come. A low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath our feet. "Oh," the child said, glancing behind her. "That's just Brutus. He's friendly." Brutus was not friendly. The creature that emerged from the house looked like evolution had gotten drunk and decided to create the universe's most efficient killing machine for fun. Stocky, low to the ground, with a flat head and small eyes that held absolutely zero fear and approximately 100% murder. Its fur was a mix of gray and black, and when it opened its mouth to taste the air, I counted more teeth than seemed strictly necessary. "What?" Vex'thar whispered. "Is that?" "Honey badger," the child said cheerfully. "Dad found him as a baby after his mom got hit by a truck, raised him by hand. He's basically part of the family now. Honey badger." The name sounded innocent enough. Sweet, even. The reality was anything but. Brutus waddled down the porch steps, moving with the confidence of something that had never lost a fight and didn't plan to start now. He stopped about 3 meters from our group, sniffed the air again, and made a sound that can only be described as a challenge to every living thing in the vicinity. "Sir," one of our security officers said, his voice tight, "my scanner indicates that creature is a Class 7 predator." Class 7. For reference, my species topped out at Class 3. The infamous Regellian war beasts were Class 5. This stubby little Earth creature, with its dead eyes and bad attitude, was 2 full classes above the most dangerous biological weapon in known space. "Perhaps we should return to the ship," I suggested quietly. "Nonsense," Vex'thar said, though I noticed his hand drifting toward his sidearm. "It's just a small animal. Earth predators are notoriously weak compared to galactic standards." The child knelt down and scratched Brutus behind his ears. The honey badger leaned into it, making a sound somewhere between a purr and a chainsaw. "Yeah, he's pretty small. But last month, he fought off 3 coyotes that were after the chickens. Killed 2 of them. The third one ran away, missing an eye. 3 coyotes. I'd read about coyotes. They were pack hunters, each one massing twice what Brutus did. Remarkable," Vex'thar said, and I could tell he was trying to calculate how quickly we could get back to the ship. "Perhaps we could speak with your parents? The adult humans? Mom's inside. Dad's in the barn fixing the tractor. You guys are kinda tall, huh? Like, really tall. Are all aliens tall? Our species averages 2.3 meters in height," Vex'thar replied, sounding relieved to be back on script. "It is quite common among spacefaring races." "Cool," the child said. Then, to Brutus, "What do you think, boy? Should we trust them?" The honey badger looked at each of us in turn. I swear on my ancestors' shells, that creature was evaluating us, weighing us, deciding whether we were worth the effort to kill. After what felt like an eternity, Brutus made a huffing sound and waddled back toward the house. "Okay, you're good," the child announced. "Brutus says you can stay. I'm Emma, by the way. Emma Hartley." "A pleasure to meet you, Emma Hartley," Vex'thar said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. "Might we speak with your mother?" Emma shrugged and headed back inside, calling over her shoulder. "Sure. Wipe your feet, though. Mom gets cranky about dirt on her floors." We stood there, 6 highly trained members of an advanced spacefaring civilization, and we wiped our feet. The inside of the human dwelling was cozy. That's the word their databases used, And it fit. Soft furniture, pictures on the walls showing Emma and her parents in various locations, and a distinct smell of something cooking that made my secondary stomach growl despite my nervousness. A woman stood at a heating unit, pouring batter onto a flat surface. She turned as we entered, holding a spatula, and her reaction was remarkably similar to her daughter's. "Well," she said, "you folks are definitely not from around here." "Mom, they're aliens," Emma said, climbing onto a tall chair at the counter. "From space. I can see that, sweetie." The woman set down her spatula and wiped her hands on a cloth. "I'm Margaret Hartley. You'll have to forgive the mess. Wasn't expecting company." The dwelling was spotless. Vex'thar launched into his prepared speech about the Galactic Council, humanity's potential, and the wonders of the wider universe. Margaret Hartley listened while flipping pancakes, nodding occasionally, and at one point offering us coffee, which we politely declined because our research indicated human coffee could dissolve hull plating. "That's all very interesting," Margaret said, when Vex'thar finally wound down. "But I'm going to need to see some credentials. We get all sorts coming through here, claiming to be from the government, or aliens, or selling solar panels. Last month we had a man insisting he was a time traveler. Turned out he was just high." "High?" Vex'thar asked. "Intoxicated. On substances. You know what? Never mind. Point is, I'm going to need proof you're who you say you are before we discuss anything serious." I watched my commander's face cycle through several emotions. Confusion, irritation, grudging respect. This was his element, supposedly. Diplomacy, negotiation, proof of our technological superiority. He pulled out his personal data pad, a device that could access any computer system in the galaxy, translate 7,000 languages simultaneously, and project holographic images with perfect clarity. He showed her a video of our home world. Margaret squinted at it. "That's pretty good CGI. My nephew does something similar for movie studios, but I'm going to need something more concrete." "More concrete," Vex'thar repeated, his voice strained. "Madam, we arrived in a starship, which I haven't seen. Could be a weather balloon, government drone. We get those all the time." Emma was eating pancakes and watching the exchange with obvious amusement. Brutus had returned and was sitting at her feet, those dead eyes fixed on our security team. "Very well," Vex'thar said. He gestured to one of our officers. "Demonstrate the neural disruptor. Low setting." The officer pulled his weapon, aimed at a nearby chair, and fired. The chair rippled, phased out of normal space-time for exactly 3 seconds, and returned to normal. Margaret blinked. "Okay, that's new. We possess technology far beyond current human understanding," Vex'thar said, his confidence returning. "Anti-gravity propulsion, faster than light travel, molecular reconstruction. We can cure diseases, extend lifespans, and terraform planets. Humanity stands at the threshold of a new age." "Can you fix a tractor?" Emma asked around a mouthful of pancakes. What? "Our tractor's been broken for 3 weeks. Dad's been trying to fix it but can't figure out what's wrong." "Can you fix it?" Margaret smiled. "That's actually not a bad test. You folks claim to have all this advanced technology. Prove it. Fix our tractor." And that's how the first diplomatic mission to Earth turned into a farm equipment repair operation. We followed Emma and Margaret out to the barn, a massive structure that smelled of hay, machine oil, and something my translator couldn't identify, but my nose insisted was extremely unpleasant. The tractor sat in the middle of the space, a hulking, primitive machine that looked like it had been cobbled together from spare parts and pure stubbornness. A man was bent over the engine, tools scattered around him, muttering words my translator definitely recognized, but politely refused to repeat. "Tom," Margaret called. "We have visitors." Tom Hartley straightened, saw us, and dropped his wrench. What in the… Aliens, Dad? Emma supplied helpfully. They want to prove they're real by fixing the tractor. Tom looked at us. Looked at the tractor. Looked back at us. Can you? Certainly, Vex'thar said, though I noticed he was looking at me when he said it. Krill, scan the device. I pulled out my multi-scanner and ran it over the tractor. The readings came back quickly. Combustion engine, hydraulic systems, electrical components, all running on something called alternating current. Primitive, yes, but the principles were sound enough. The problem is in the fuel delivery system, I announced. Specifically, the component you call a carburetor has a blockage in its primary jet. Additionally, your ignition timing is off by approximately 15 degrees, and your cooling system has a leak in the upper radiator hose. Tom stared at me. How did you? I've been checking that carburetor for days. Your tools are insufficient for molecular-level analysis, I explained. I pulled out my repair kit, a device about the size of a human hand that could fix anything from a broken bone to a damaged starship hull. I applied it to the tractor, made the necessary adjustments at the atomic level, and stepped back. Try it now. Tom climbed into the operator's seat and turned the key. The engine roared to life, smoother than it had probably ever run. According to the vibration analysis, my scanner was still feeding me. I'll be damned, Tom said, shutting it off. He climbed down and extended his hand to me. That's impressive. I recognized the gesture from our briefings. A handshake, a sign of respect and agreement. I extended my own manipulator and completed the ritual. So you're really aliens, Margaret said. It wasn't a question anymore. We are, Vex'thar confirmed. And we are here to offer humanity a place among the stars. That's a big offer, Tom said. Gonna need to think about that. Maybe talk to some government people. But in the meantime, you folks want some breakfast? Those pancakes Margaret made are probably getting cold, and she makes the best pancakes in 3 counties. And that's how first contact with humanity involved pancakes, a broken tractor, and a honey badger named Brutus, who I swear was still planning our murders. We sat around their dining table, plates of pancakes in front of us. Our diplomatic training kicked in, and we politely tried the human food. It was surprisingly good. Sweet, soft, with a substance they called maple syrup that was probably illegal in 6 systems due to its addictive properties. So, Emma said, pointing her fork at Vex'thar, if we join your space club, do we get spaceships? Eventually, yes, Vex'thar replied. After appropriate training and technological integration, humans would have access to standard council vessels. Do they have weapons? Some, for defense. What about the big guns, like planet-destroying weapons? Emma? Margaret said sharply. Don't be rude. I'm just asking. It's important. Margaret. Vex'thar shifted uncomfortably. We prefer not to discuss military capabilities during initial contact. Because you have them, Tom said. It wasn't a question. You show up here, with all this fancy technology, offering to share it, but you've got the firepower to back it up if we say no. The silence stretched out. I watched Brutus watching us, and realized the honey badger wasn't the only predator in this room. We do, Vex'thar admitted finally. The galaxy is not always peaceful. Protection is necessary. Honest, Tom said. I appreciate that. But here's the thing about humans. We don't take kindly to threats, even implied ones. And we're real good at fighting when we need to be. We mean you no harm, I said quickly. Truly. We are here to help humanity advance. I believe you, Margaret said. Or at least, I believe you believe that. But you need to understand something about us. We're not simple. We're not primitive. We're survivors. This planet has tried to kill us in every way imaginable, and we're still here. We've fought wars, survived plagues, and figured out how to thrive in environments that should have wiped us out. We did all that without any help from space aliens. Emma nodded sagely, like her mother had just explained the secrets of the universe. Brutus made a sound that might have been agreement. Vex'thar set down his fork. You are correct. We have, perhaps, underestimated your species. This is meant to be a partnership, not a conquest. What would humanity need from us to consider joining the council? Time, Tom said immediately. Time to wrap our heads around all this. Time to talk to our leaders, our scientists, our people. You can't just show up and expect us to sign on the dotted line. And respect, Margaret added. Treat us like equals, not children who need guidance. We've got plenty to offer, even if our technology isn't as flashy as yours. Like what? One of our security officers asked. I think it was genuine curiosity, not sarcasm. Emma grinned. Like honey badgers. And that's when everything went wrong. The door to the barn exploded inward. Not metaphorically. Actually, exploded. Wood, splinters flying everywhere, the sound of tearing metal, and a roar that made every survival instinct I had scream at me to run. A creature burst through the wreckage, massive and covered in brown fur, standing on its hind legs at nearly 3 meters tall. Highly territorial, extremely dangerous, and it was angry. Oh no, Tom said, standing slowly. That's the bear from up the mountain. Been causing trouble for weeks. The bear roared again, and I understood why humans had survived so long on this death world. They'd had to share it with things like this. Our security team raised their weapons. Vex'thar shouted orders. The bear charged. And then Brutus moved. The honey badger launched himself at the grizzly bear like a furry missile with a vendetta and absolutely zero regard for the laws of physics or common sense. Now, let me put this in perspective for you. The bear massed approximately 270 kilograms. Brutus massed maybe 12. This was not a fair fight. This was suicide with extra steps, except nobody told Brutus that. He hit the bear's face with all 4 claws extended, teeth flashing, making a sound that I can only describe as concentrated fury given vocal form. The bear reared back, swatting at this tiny demon that had attached itself to its snout. But Brutus was already moving, scrambling up and over the bear's head, biting, clawing, absolutely refusing to acknowledge that he should be dead. Get Emma inside! Tom shouted, grabbing a pitchfork from the wall. Margaret was already moving, pulling her daughter toward the house, but Emma twisted free. No! Brutus needs help! Weapons free! Vex'thar commanded, and our security team opened fire with their neural disruptors. 3 beams of concentrated energy hit the bear square in the chest. It should have dropped instantly. Nervous system overwhelmed, muscles locked. Instead, it shook its head, like it had been stung by a particularly annoying insect and kept fighting. Why isn't it working? Our weapons officer screamed. Too much mass, I shouted back, my scanner going haywire. The disruptor field isn't strong enough to penetrate deep enough into its system. The bear managed to grab Brutus and flung him across the barn. The honey badger hit the wall with a sickening thud, slid down, and for one horrible moment, I thought he was done. He got back up, shook himself off, and charged right back in. That thing is insane, one of our officers said, and I couldn't tell if he meant the bear or the honey badger. Honestly, it could have been either. Tom rushed in with the pitchfork, jabbing at the bear's side. The bear swatted the tool away like it was made of paper, and Tom went sprawling. Margaret screamed. Emma broke free and ran toward her father. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the bear turning toward Emma, saw those massive paws raising, saw the child who had offered us pancakes about to become a statistic in the universe's most violent nature documentary. Then Brutus hit the bear's throat. Not just bit. Latched on. Jaws locked with the determination of something that had evolved specifically to say no to death itself. The bear thrashed, trying to shake him off, blood starting to mat its fur. Brutus held on, growling through clenched teeth, his back legs raking the bear's chest with claws that had apparently been sharpened by rage itself. "Increase power to maximum!" Vex'thar ordered. "Sir, at maximum power, we could cause permanent neural damage or death." "Do it!" All 4 officers fired simultaneously, their disruptors cranked to settings that were definitely not legal under council regulations. The combined beam hit the bear like a hammer made of invisible force. This time, it went down, crashing to the barn floor with enough impact to shake dust from the rafters. Brutus released his grip and backed away slowly, blood on his muzzle, eyes still, locked on the fallen predator, ready for round 2 if necessary. The bear didn't get up. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. We all just stood there, processing what had just happened. Emma ran to Brutus, dropping to her knees beside him. Good boy, Brutus. You saved us." The honey badger, who moments ago had been fighting a creature 20 times his size with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely enjoyed near-death experiences, leaned into Emma's hug and licked her face. Margaret helped Tom to his feet. He had a split lip and what was definitely going to be an impressive bruise, but he was grinning. That was something. "Is everyone all right?" Vex'thar asked, his voice shaky. I'd served with him for 6 cycles and had never heard him sound uncertain before. "We're fine," Tom said. "Thanks to you folks and Brutus." He walked over to the bear, checked its breathing. Alive. Just unconscious. Wildlife Services can relocate it somewhere away from the ranch. "That creature," one of our officers said, staring at Brutus, "fought a Class 6 predator without hesitation. That's not normal behavior." That's a honey badger," Emma said proudly, scratching behind Brutus's ears. The honey badger had apparently decided the fight was over, and was now more interested in getting attention. They're the toughest animals on Earth. Everybody knows that. I ran a full biological scan on Brutus while Emma held him. The results were terrifying. Loose skin that prevented bites from reaching vital organs. Incredibly thick hide that could turn aside anything short of a blade. A skeletal structure reinforced beyond normal Earth mammal standards. A pain tolerance that my scanner listed as abnormally high, which seemed like a massive understatement. And a bite force completely disproportionate to his body size. "This creature," I said slowly, "is biologically engineered for combat." "Nah," Tom said, wiping blood from his mouth. "That's just nature. Evolution on Earth doesn't mess around. You want to survive here, you either get tough or you get smart." Brutus got both. Vex'thar looked at the unconscious bear, then at Brutus, then at the Hartley family standing there like fighting apex predators before breakfast was just another Tuesday. "I need to report this to the council." "Before you do that," Margaret said, "maybe we should finish our conversation about what humanity brings to your galactic community." We moved back to the house. The pancakes were indeed cold now, but Margaret made fresh ones while we talked. Brutus curled up at Emma's feet, looking like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. The bear remained unconscious in the barn, probably having dreams about retirement. "So," Tom said, accepting a fresh cup of coffee, "you wanted to know what humanity can offer. Here's the thing about Earth. This planet has tried to kill everything that lives on it since life began. Volcanoes, ice ages, meteor strikes, predators that make that bear look cuddly, diseases that wipe out entire populations, and we're still here. We learned to fight back. And it's not just us, Margaret added. We've learned to work with the other species here. Dogs, horses, even honey badgers, if you raise them right. We understand cooperation. We understand adaptation. Those are skills, Commander. Valuable ones. Vex'thar was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised me. You're right. We came here thinking we would be teaching you, but perhaps we're the ones who need to learn. Does that mean you're going to stop treating us like kids? Emma asked. Yes, Vex'thar said. Yes, it does. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Montana landscape. The galaxy is changing. There are threats emerging that the Council doesn't want to acknowledge. Hostile species from beyond our borders, ancient weapons being rediscovered, pirates and mercenaries growing bolder. We need allies who know how to fight, really fight. Not just with technology, but with, he gestured vaguely, grit, Tom supplied, determination, stubbornness. We've got plenty of that. And apparently, honey badgers, I added, looking at Brutus, who yawned, showing all those teeth. Emma giggled. Could we take Brutus to space? Absolutely not, Margaret and Vex'thar said simultaneously, then looked at each other in surprise. The environmental controls alone would be a nightmare, I said, though part of me was already calculating if it was technically possible. Tom called some people he knew in the government, including a woman named General Patterson, who apparently owed him a favor from their military days. Margaret contacted a physicist friend at a nearby university. Within 3 hours, we had a small group assembled at the ranch. Watching humans work together was educational. They argued. Loudly. Everyone had opinions, and nobody was shy about sharing them. But underneath the chaos was a structure, a purpose. They were testing ideas, pushing boundaries, making sure everyone had a voice. It's messy, I commented to Vex'thar. It's democracy, he replied. Inefficient, but effective. They'll come to a decision eventually. They did. By late afternoon, the consensus was clear. Humanity wanted to join the galactic community, but on their own terms. No forced technology sharing. No cultural interference. Equal status in council decisions from day one. And a demand that Earth's solar system remain sovereign territory. Those are bold requirements, Vex'thar said. General Patterson, a woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars, leaned back in her chair. Commander, let me be direct. We know we're behind technologically. We know there's a learning curve, but we're not interested in being anyone's client state or pet project. You want humanity in your council? We come as equals, or we don't come at all. And if we refuse? Tom smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Then we politely ask you to leave and figure things out on our own. We've done it for millions of years. We can keep doing it. The physicist, a young man named Dr. Reeves, added, Plus, we're already working on our own space technology. Give us 50 years, maybe 100, and we'll get there ourselves. Might take longer, might be harder, but we'll do it. That's what humans do. Vex'thar looked at me. I did some quick calculations based on human technological progress over the last century. He's not wrong, sir. If their advancement continues at current rates, they'll achieve faster than light travel within 120 standard cycles. Crude, inefficient, but functional. 120 cycles, Vex'thar muttered. The Council thinks they have thousands of cycles to decide whether to make contact. The Council, General Patterson said, doesn't know humans very well, do they? That got a laugh from everyone except Vex'thar, who looked like he was reconsidering every life choice that had led him to this moment. Finally, he nodded. I'll take your terms to the Council. I can't promise they'll accept, but I'll argue your case. You've earned that much. Fair enough. Tom said, standing and offering his hand again. Vex'thar took it this time, the human custom feeling less alien than it had that morning. As we prepared to leave, Emma ran up with something in her hands. A drawing, done in the crude but charming style of human children. It showed stick figures, aliens and humans standing together, and a small, fierce creature that could only be Brutus. "For your ship," she said, handing it to Vex'thar. "So you remember us." Vex'thar took the drawing like it was made of precious metal. "Thank you, Emma. I don't think we could forget you if we tried." We walked back to the Harmony's Promise as the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky, in colors that my homeworld never managed. The ship's medical bay patched up Tom's injuries and ran diagnostics on Brutus, who tolerated the scans with remarkable patience. Probably because Emma was there, feeding him treats. "His cellular structure is remarkable," our medical officer reported. "Accelerated healing. Redundant organs. This species could survive environments that would kill most galactic fauna." "Could we?" one of the security officers asked hesitantly. "Acquire some for the council? For study?" "No," Vex'thar and I said together. "But sir, the military applications are exactly why we're not going to weaponize someone's pet," Vex'thar snapped. "We came here to make friends, not steal their animals. Have we learned nothing today?" The officer wisely shut up. As we lifted off, the Hartley family stood watching, Brutus sitting calmly between Emma and Tom. They waved. We waved back, even though they probably couldn't see us through the hull. "Sir," I said, as we broke atmosphere, "what do you think the council will say?" Vex'thar was quiet for a long time, watching Earth shrink behind us. "I think they're going to panic. We came expecting to find primitives who would be grateful for our guidance. Instead, we found survivors who fought their way to the top of one of the most hostile planets in this sector. And they did it without help, without technology, just determination and an absolute refusal to quit." "That scares you," I observed. "That terrifies me," he admitted. "Because if humans can do all that while stuck on one planet, what are they going to be capable of when they have access to the galaxy?" He held up Emma's drawing. "But I'll tell you something else, Krill. I'm glad they're going to be our allies and not our enemies." I thought about Brutus attacking that bear without hesitation, about Emma's casual fearlessness, about Tom and Margaret facing down first contact with nothing but confidence and pancakes, about an entire species that looked at impossible odds and said, "Watch this." I'm glad too, sir. The trip back to Council Space took 16 cycles. During that time, Vex'thar prepared his report, and I analyzed everything we'd learned. The more I studied, the more concerned I became. Humans weren't just tough. They were adaptable in ways that defied standard evolutionary theory. They could survive in deserts that would cook most species and Arctic regions that would freeze others solid. They could eat an absurd variety of foods, including substances that were toxic to most galactic life. They formed bonds across species lines, domesticating everything from apex predators to insects. And they had something our databases called spite, which seemed to be a primary motivator for impossible achievements. "Listen to this," I told Vex'thar. "I found an account of a human scientist named Marie Curie. She discovered radioactive elements despite having no formal laboratory, facing massive discrimination, and working in conditions that eventually killed her. She won 2 Nobel Prizes in different sciences. And when asked why she continued despite the danger, she essentially said it was because people told her she couldn't." "Spite," Vex'thar said. "Spite," I confirmed. "They'll kill themselves to prove a point. Remind me never to tell a human something is impossible." The council chamber was as impressive as always. a massive spherical room with representatives from 700 member species floating in their designated spaces. Vex'thar stood in the center, projecting holographic images of Earth, the Hartley family, and, yes, Brutus fighting the bear. The reaction was mixed. Some species were intrigued, others were horrified. A few wanted to immediately quarantine Earth until humanity either evolved beyond their violent tendencies or wiped themselves out. This is precisely why we should not make contact, Council Member Thorax insisted. His species looked like oversized mantises and had strong opinions about proper civilization. These humans are clearly dangerous, unstable. They weaponize their companion animals. They didn't weaponize anything, Vex'thar argued. That honey badger was protecting its family. That's loyalty, not aggression. A distinction without a difference when the result is violence. The result was survival, I interjected, probably overstepping my rank but not caring. That family faced a legitimate threat. They responded appropriately. Would you prefer they just died politely? The debate raged for 3 cycles. In the end, a compromise was reached. Humanity would be offered provisional membership in the Council with full voting rights. In exchange, they would agree to regular inspections, cultural exchanges, and a promise not to develop certain weapons technologies without Council approval. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Vex'thar returned to Earth with the Council's decision. This time, we landed at a proper government facility with military escorts, news cameras, and politicians who had prepared speeches. It was official. It was historic. It was everything First Contact should have been. It was also boring, compared to the Hartley Ranch. After the formal ceremonies, after the treaties were signed, and the photos were taken, Vex'thar requested permission to return to Montana. To thank the family who had made this possible. We landed in the same south pasture. Tom and Margaret were waiting, along with Emma and Brutus. The honey badger had apparently forgiven us for the medical scans and trotted over for scratches. "Heard you got your treaty," Tom said, shaking Vex'thar's hand. "We did, thanks to you." "We didn't do much. Just talked. You showed us what humanity really is," I said. Brave. Practical. Willing to fight when necessary but preferring to talk. That's what convinced the Council. Emma tugged on my uniform sleeve. "Hey, Krill, when we get spaceships, can I visit your planet?" I looked at Vex'thar. He shrugged, a gesture he'd learned from humans. "I don't see why not. In a few years, when you're older." "Can I bring Brutus?" "Absolutely not," we all said together. Emma laughed, and the sound carried across the Montana grassland, bright and full of hope. As we prepared to leave Earth for the second time, Vex'thar pulled me aside. "I've been thinking about what you said, about humans being motivated by spite." "Sir? There's a hostile species on our borders, the Vorash. They've been raiding colony worlds, taking slaves, destroying outposts. The Council has been trying to negotiate with them for cycles with no success. And I think maybe it's time we let the humans try talking to them." I stared at him. "Sir, that's either brilliant or absolutely insane. With humans, I'm learning those two things aren't mutually exclusive." 5 cycles later, a human diplomatic ship met with the Vorash. The details of that meeting are still classified, but I know a few facts. The human ambassador brought a honey badger, not Brutus, but one of his offspring that Emma's family had bred specifically for space travel. The Vorash started the meeting with threats and demands. They ended it by agreeing to a peace treaty and withdrawing from Council territory. Nobody knows exactly what happened in that room. The ambassador refuses to discuss it, but rumor has it that the Vorash got a demonstration of why you don't mess with creatures from Earth, and they decided raiding easier targets elsewhere in the galaxy was a much better life choice. These days, humanity is a full member of the Council. They contribute technology, ideas, and a perspective that the rest of us desperately needed. They're making faster progress than any species in recorded history, combining our advanced tech with their own innovative approaches in ways that shouldn't work, but somehow do. And occasionally, when things get really dangerous, when we face threats that seem impossible to overcome, the Council calls in human specialists. They always arrive ready to fight. They usually bring honey badgers, and they never, ever give up. I keep Emma's drawing in my quarters, a reminder that sometimes the most important discoveries don't happen in laboratories or council chambers. Sometimes they happen on small farms in the middle of nowhere, over pancakes and coffee, when you meet people who show you that being advanced isn't about technology. It's about heart, courage, and the absolute conviction that no problem is too big to tackle if you're willing to get your hands dirty and refuse to quit. That's humanity. That's what they bring to the galaxy. And honestly, the rest of us are better for it. Even if their honey badgers still scare the hell out of me.